This is something that I think is not talked about enough.
So let's talk about it. You're not going to want to hear this, but the anti-aging tweaks that you're doing in the meantime to hold off on getting surgery could end up biting you in the ass when you actually want to get that facelift. I'm not a doctor, but let's take a look at what some of the top facial plastic surgeons are saying about the anti-aging beauty treatments that everybody's doing and how it might affect your results when you finally want to get that facelift.
Something that is shared a lot among the facial plastic surgery community as we go to conferences and sit around a table and we're sharing stories about challenges. You as a patient, you can come in with two scenarios. Either you have never had any filler done in your face or any threads or any Sculptra, and then you sit on the operating table and the surgeon goes at it. That's an easier operation for the surgeon. On the flip end, you have had fillers, Sculptra, threads. The surgeon gets in there and he's faced with a much more challenging operation, and the reason for that is scar tissue, and that creates a more sticky, more difficult surgical space for the surgeon to work with.
There are a lot of people online saying this isn't a big deal and that if you're a really great surgeon, that there shouldn't be an issue, but
it is not fear-mongering to state that certain fillers can make facelifting more difficult. There's no more fear-mongering to say that than to say that gluing pages of a book together or ripping out certain pages of a book make it difficult to be able to read every single word of the book in the same fashion that if pages had not been ripped out or if pages had not been glued together. I think it's also a little bit of gaslighting for certain surgeons that don't do any meaningful amount of facelifting to say, well, if you're a competent plastic surgeon, you should be able to read through that book despite the fact that the pages are glued together and multiple pages are missing. So that's just a fact.
The old understanding of fillers was we thought they would last 6 to maybe 18 months tops, but now we're doing more research about this. It's showing that some of these fillers like Radiesse and Juvederm, besides the fact that they can migrate, they could stay in the skin much longer than they previously thought. I will say from my own experience and getting filler under my eyes that I feel like even when I got that stuff removed, sometimes I still feel like there's probably some remnants of filler under my eyes from 15 years ago. There is a treatment called hyaluronidase, which they inject into the area where your filler is, where your hyaluronic acid fillers are, like Juvederm and Restylane, and it dissolves it. However, it doesn't dissolve it completely, and it's almost impossible for them to just inject it exactly where the filler is because the filler migrates. They can use ultrasound to try to find exactly where the filler is in the face, but the more you do over time, the more complicated it becomes to remove it. This is a great example of removal with hyaluronidase. However, if you have lots of filler in your face, after multiple removal sessions, as you can see in this ultrasound, there will still be pockets of filler left over. Warning that there's some graphic visuals coming up after this.
That is where, when the surgeon gets into the operating room and is separating the tissues, you start getting into this like obscure, sticky mess.
This was her patient with a history of filler injected into her jawline. And despite the fact that hyaluronidase was used to dissolve the filler multiple times before surgery, she still found these fillers in the face.
That's fillers. They last for a long time. They create deformity in the tissues, they block lymphatics. And here's the other thing with hyaluronic acid fillers. Post-operatively, all my patients who have these fillers in there, they swell a lot more, and there's persistent swelling around the cheeks and different areas that lasts sometimes months, if not even sometimes close to a year. So it really does hinder recovery as well, which is an unfortunate thing because everyone wants to recover as fast as possible.
Okay, Sculptra. I've never done Sculptra, but I have friends and clients that love it. But after seeing this, it freaks me out and I probably won't do it. Maybe if I knew I was never going to get surgery, I would be interested in Sculptra because I do know a lot of people that really like it, but just seeing what it does in the face now, this is not to scare you. This is just to inform you because we see these things as kind of like magic and an alternative to getting surgery and spending less money, and it's less invasive, but you really should know what you're putting in your face and what the consequences are later on, just so you have options.
Using Sculptra to stimulate the creation of collagen, but what happens when you're in the operating room with those patients? collagen and scar are the same exact thing. Scar tissue is made of collagen. So you're getting in there, again, you're peeling away the skin and doing all your normal things, and then you get into this mess of almost like concrete. It feels hard to the touch. It's like cobblestones. You're trying to get through that without getting into the wrong plane, etc. Again, it makes it much more difficult.
A warning, this will be some graphic content coming up next from Dr. Mike Nayak, and he's showing you what the deep plane facelift separation will look like and the difference between someone without Sculptra and with Sculptra.
Similar to turning the pages of a book made out of tracing paper, the pages come apart cleanly, they're smooth and they're shiny. You can see right through them. The pages have good integrity. And so when I build a new face out of this, I can preserve all the nerves. I can see everything I'm doing. Contrast that to this face. This woman has had Sculptra. And many of you are going to say, well, how many times has she had it? And the answer is it really doesn't matter. And what we see here is lumps and bumps and dots of collagen, and they look like pebbles or they look like little popcorn pieces, but that is the collagen that you're hearing about. These are acting like spots of glue between the beautiful pages of tracing paper, of tissue paper in the book that I'm trying to separate.
Okay, I know someone's going to come in my comments for me and say how great the threads are, that they love them. I'm sure there's also practitioners that use these. That's fine. Everybody can have their own opinion. I remember this guy like 10 years ago was like, everybody's getting threads. Everybody's doing it. It was when that trend first started where Bella Hadid and Kendall Jenner all of a sudden show up with their eyes kind of like more like this, and people were getting threads like crazy. I had a friend that did it, and she wanted me to go with her, and this guy was giving her a really cheap price, and I was like, why is it so cheap? She got it done. It looked horrible, and I was so glad I didn't do it, but seeing hers scared me off completely because she had so much puckering back here. It just didn't make sense to me. I know there are people that do them well, and there's a lot of people that should not be doing them.
Shame!
They're very easy to get a hold of. They're not expensive to buy. People can just do them without nearly as much training as they should get. So there's a lot of complications that arise from these things. And whether you get the permanent ones that will be there forever, or even the dissolvable ones, can form lots of scar tissue. But don't take my word for it. Here's some clips for you.
Threads are placed into the midface, and then the barbs pull the soft tissue up. And as long as the sutures are holding, you're going to have a lift. But eventually the sutures break and you're going to lose all of that. Typically, these things last about 3 months, maybe 4 months.
I did a facelift on someone, and you can see all the stuff I removed from her face because she had a few different sessions of threads being put in.
Oh my God! What is that?
Those threads ultimately became a problem. They were poking out in certain areas. They were twisted up in her tissue, and they were hard to get out.
This is another nightmare example of threads. This is just on this girl's TikTok.
Oh God.
What you're seeing there is a barb suture that is coming out of the mouth. These sutures tend to migrate like you're seeing in the video here. The placement of the suture is very difficult to do precisely.
I do think that there's a lot of people offering threads because they're quick and they're cheap, but they may not have the anatomical knowledge to be doing them in the best way. On top of that, they cause scar tissue. I've seen a lot of surgeons posting about this in their stories where they go to do surgery and it's like a nightmare inside of the face with all the threads. So this is just something to keep in mind before you just do this thinking that it's no big deal and it won't affect anything in the future.
If you're lucky enough to hear this before you started down this road, well, you're ahead of the game. If you happen to be somebody who's midway through it, well, stop doing these things, in my strong opinion. You're never gonna be able to stop your tissues from sagging. Your neck and jawline and everything else will continue to sag despite all of the fillers that you put in your face, despite all the Sculptra you put in your face, and despite how many threads you put in your face. Maybe it'll give you the illusion when you're in the early stages that it's helping because it's camouflaging, it's giving contour, etc. But that's totally different than actually stopping your tissues from sagging.
I'm not telling anybody not to get fillers, not to get Sculptra. I kind of am saying not to get threads. But you go somewhere and you get these injections, nobody's telling you that this is what happens to your face long term.
It makes creating a natural look more difficult.
When I started looking for a facelift surgeon 3 years ago, I stopped doing anything, including Botox, because I wanted them to see my true face the way it really is, without any extra treatments that would change my face. And now I'm really glad I did. I've done minimal fillers in the past. It's been at least 5 years since I've done anything like that. And like I said, I had a filler on my under eyes years and years and years ago, and I really feel like some of that's still there, but in my future facelift, I'm just not even gonna mess with my under eye area, so that's something I don't really have to worry about. But now I'm glad that I kind of stopped doing that stuff, also to save money to put it towards my facelift, and I'm going in with a face that just has like not been messed with and will hopefully, knock on wood, not have the complications because of it.
Imagine a person who has a bunch of filler placed into their cheek over a 5 or 10 year period, right? This whole area becomes like a big ball. When you do a deep plane facelift and you move the face back up here, now you're taking this ball and you're putting it in a place that wouldn't have normally needed volume to be added, just needed the cheek to be moved up. Now what you've done is you've created a look.
I did not do this graphic. This was the graphic from his video.
that the person never had when they were in their 30s, which is really at the end of the day, the end game of these type of surgeries. You're trying to reestablish what 30s and 40s generally look like. But if you alter your appearance and then you have the surgery, well, you're not dealing with the same face that you were born with that just happened to age. You're dealing with a face that is aged, plus you've manipulated it. So don't expect your surgeon to create that totally natural 30, 40-year-old face that you once had. Show me a picture of themselves when they're younger and then their face is full of filler and say, well, that ship has sailed. You don't look like that anymore. And we can't get you back to looking like this no matter what.
You know, don't shoot the messenger. I'm just here to inform you that these are possibilities. And I mean, this is really something to think about if you want a facelift in the future. It's kind of given me a little more clarity, and I want to talk to friends and family about it that are thinking about future surgeries. And it's just, maybe you have to be a little more mindful, and you know, it's constantly new things coming out. See other people do it and see how it goes down the line before you just go and try every new thing that comes out. I'm sorry to anybody that's in this industry that sells these things. I'm really not saying never get these things done. I just feel that people that are getting them done are not as knowledgeable about what they're actually doing to their faces as they should be. I hope you enjoyed this and appreciate my content. If you do, give it a like. I really appreciate it. If you ever leave any comments, I always answer. And if you're interested in my facelift journey coming up, I will be posting a lot of stuff about that coming up soon. As always, guys, thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next video. Take care. See you later. Bye.